Resistance 2 reveals the origins of Chimera invasion and they reach deeper than you have expected. Game also shows USA being destroyed by aliens and gives many answers about why the main character is resistant to the virus, and by the end of it we find out whether or not he would turn into Chimera. In this video I will explain what happens in Resistance 2. Game starts with a short introduction of how the Chimera virus spread over Europe. If you want to recap what happened in the first part of the game, check out my other video where I explain that and summarize all the events in Resistance: The Fall of Man. Sequel picks up the story right where it was left. Hale, the only survivor of the 12,000 US troops deployed into the UK, walks alone through the snow while being spotted by the helicopter, and the second he gets on board, he is injected with some medicine that puts him into sleep. When he wakes up, he meets Major Richard Blake, director of Advanced Tactical Ops at SRPA. Hale is taken to the research facility in Iceland. Turns out Iceland is already under Chimera attack. Helicopter gets shot down by Goliath. Only Hale and Blake survive the crash. They find a way into the base, but while they try to enter, a creature called Daedalus crushes the gate and escapes the building. Being overpowered by chimeras, Hale and Blake escape to the plane that evacuates SRPA soldiers from the base, and they fly to San Francisco. 2 years later, Hale is still the subject of experiments run by Dr. Malikov. Turns out he is on some kind of underwater base, and soon it gets attacked by a creature called Kraken. Kraken breaks the glass window. Hale is ordered to get back to the surface and extract Dr. Malikov safely from the station. Base gets under a heavy attack by chimeras, and apart from what Hale already dealt with in England, now they also have these drones, and they are too powerful to fight them, so he must just avoid them being guided by Blake through the radio. Hale meets Malikov and walks him out of the building. But we have to give Doctor a little respect, as he's not one of those sissy scientists running scared. Oh no, he grabs a gun and fights alongside Hale. At one point Kraken shows up but gets stuck in the door, so he just coffee briefs the room a few times and disappears. On the surface things don't look good. Looks like Chimera is having a full invasion underway. Hale reunites with his teammates and gets to the evac point. While getting on the chopper, Malikov asked the soldier did they retrieve the viral inhibitors. And since they didn't, Hale decides to go and get them, but we all know it's just an excuse to have a chance for a proper duel with Kraken. Hale gets extracted to California. He is sent to the factory and his team gets ambushed on the way. Hale gets blown away by the truck explosion. When he wakes up, the battle is still going on. He manages to push the enemy back, but they need to reach the place on foot. While getting through the forest, one of the soldiers gets killed by an invisible Chimera, and this is a totally reference to the original Predator. And yeah, Chimeras got Predators now on their side. Well, not the real ones, but some of their units just act like they were Predators. To get to the factory, the unit takes road through a small town, and turns out it's filled with chimeras, and they have one of their supply ships hanging over it, so that's too much for a small unit to handle. Hale figures they can use C4, but to blow up the ship it needs to be placed inside. If you have ever seen Independence Day, you know what's the plan. If you didn't, well, boys decided to steal Chimera shuttle, fill it with C4 and fly it inside the ship. When they reach the place, they split up and set charges. Werner manages to take over the control room and he guides the rest to the reactor. Hale reaches the bridge and learns that Chimeras plan to attack US defense lines in the Twin Falls, Idaho. Team sets charges in the strategic points of the ship and manage to escape, just in time for the fireworks. Next stop, Twin Falls, Idaho. Team still uses that Chimera ship, but Chimeras recognize that humans are on board and shoot them down. Luckily everyone jumped out before the crash. Now they need to restore the tower to prevent the entire perimeter from being compromised, and the Chimerian fleet is almost at the place. Not to mention, the whole territory is under their control. While walking through the town filled with Chimera cocoons, we learn that they don't need conversion centers anymore to breed new units. They just pop out everywhere like corn in the microwave. And it gets creepy as hell when you need to get through a lot of dark buildings or a train tunnel. Hale reaches the tower and that giant crawler shows up. Hale is having a hell of a fight with this thing on the top of this tower. Then he brings the tower back online, so it shoots the incoming ships, and that prevents enemy master plan. But no rest for Hale, since he takes the squad to the Bryce Canyon to extract Malikov, ignoring the command that ordered him to get back to the base. Hale spots the leading ship there, and soon they get attacked by Himerian anti-aircraft artillery, so Hale clears the landing zone with a sniper rifle. They start looking for Malikov, but Daedalus connects to say hi and kinda warns Hale to leave the place. Hale doesn't care much about that, and boys take over the facility. But suddenly, they are attacked by this swarm of Chimera bugs, so the only thing they can do is run like crazy to escape, and Hale is the only one who actually stays there to find Malikov. He reaches him, and turns out Daedalus is also there, and he gives a short lecture about Chimera being an older species than human, and they are much further in evolution process. Hale somehow gets hypnotized and loses conscience, or maybe he just got bored by this speech and fall asleep. Who knows, but he wakes up surprised that they were left alive, and Malikov, on the way out, shows Hale the original oldest forms of Chimera. Those are things that Malikov studied back in Russia, and he points out that they are pure Himerian forms. He also assumes that Daedalus left him alive as part of a punishment to make his creator witness the ultimate Chimerian victory. Yeah, you heard right, creator. Malikov confesses that he took genetic material from pure Chimera and infused it into 2 human subjects. The first was Private Jordan Shepard, and turns out he is Daedalus. But who was the second? Well, Malikov says something like this.
I believe you already know, Nathan.
And I think it means that Hale was the second one, but I'm not really sure, so help me out in the comments section. Is Hale the second one who got injected or not? Anyways, they reach the elevator, and the swarm stays away, so it looks like it's afraid of electricity. Hale and Malikov take a risk and lure the swarm into one of the generators. Malikov reveals that there are more towers and they need to stop Daedalus from activating them. Those towers are like million years old and Chimera's extinct back then, but thanks to this DNA roulette he played back in Russia, he kinda brought them back to life. So they are just picking up when their ancestors left. There's also a risk of Hale transforming into Chimera, since until now the process was delayed by putting him into inhibitator from time to time. But there aren't any here, so he slowly transforms, and that puts him in a tense moment with one of his men, Capelli. Team flies to Chicago, which is ruined. Hale takes his squad and clears the way to the tower. They progress through the city streets, dealing with all types of enemies until a giant Chimera shows up. We are talking about King Concise here, but it's far uglier. Standard bazooka doesn't work and Hale gets grabbed by this mutant, but he feeds it with lark rockets and gets thrown back on the roof. And few more of those babies fired on the sky bridge makes it collapse and knocks down the giant. So they manage to get to the tower, and Malikov tries to deactivate it, but it turns out it was activated back remotely by one of the other towers. It's Daedalus who actually made the activation from Iceland. 13 hours later, Hale lands on Iceland. Judging by his looks, I guess he had no time to use one of these inhibitators. First, he neutralizes AAGs to make way for air support. So now the Air Force is underway, but it gets attacked by Chimera fleet, so they need to pull back. Hale and his men decide to take a desperate mission and enter the tower to look for Daedalus. Even getting near to the tower means a lot of heavy combat with overwhelming Chimera forces, but they reach the place and find the one they are looking for. He kills Hornthorn as part of his big entrance, then he plays a little hide and seek, making the team split up. He takes down Warner, and when Hale finds Daedalus, he kills him with a snap of his fingers. I mean, I know he doesn't have fingers, but he just made it look easy, okay? Anyways, that's something I really was not expecting to happen, like the main character dying like this. And then we see the towers getting activated. But you know what? Hale is actually alive. He wakes up looking more Chimerian than the last time we checked. Turns out he's in Louisiana and Malikov is taking care of him. And 6 weeks have passed since the Iceland incident. Malikov explains that Capelli recovered him back in Iceland, but when he was found, the virus in his body had progressed too far. Malikov kept him comatose while he searched for the cure, but unfortunately, he didn't find it. So he informs Hale that he has about 3 hours of humanity left in him. Capelli explains that after Iceland, Chimerian ships rolled over SRPA bases coast to coast and dug up even more towers from the ground. Then the fleet started moving south and now they are hanging over Mexico. Basically, the US soil is lost and the survivors are running out of supplies. Hale goes for his last mission, and while the battle, his team secures a fusion bomb. Capelli tries to deliver it to the checkpoint. Hale meets Blake, who informs him that Chimera have a staging area on the other side of the ridge. The plan is to secure the shuttle and put a bomb on it. They fight their way to the shuttle, and Hale gets another call from the Dallas. At this point he can basically turn into Chimera any second now, so Capelli almost kills him, but Blake talks to his reason. So the team flies to Mexico and land on the main ship. Bomb must be placed in the main reactor. Hale and Capelli clear the path and take down the cooling shields installed around the reactor. While opening the doors in the control room, Hale gets intel from Capelli that X-Ray Squad and Blake are not responding. Chimeras must take control of the bomb, so Hale must find it. Capelli guides him through the radio, and it turns out Chimeras try to move the bomb to the exhaust and dump it off the ship. As Hale tries to catch them, he is attacked by the Dallas, and the two have a fight. Hale is clever enough to lure the Dallas into the reactor site, where he destabilizes the reactor and uses the electroshock to kill him. Then he places his hand on the Dallas and gets hit by some kind of weird wave of power. Bomb is armed, so Hale has 4 minutes to evacuate. On the way, he encounters few more Chimeras, and turns out he gained new powers and he is able to smash them with the force of his mind. In the nick of time, he hoops on the shuttle and escapes from the ship. An huge explosion destroys the ship and all the other nearby ships. And the heat wave also reached the shuttle, making it crash on the ground. Capelli wakes up and gets out of the ship. He spots Hale standing outside and he walks towards him, noticing there are some weird objects in the sky. Hale turns around and he is no longer human. He tells Capelli they are coming and this is just the beginning. And Capelli shoots him in the head. And that's how the game ends.